Okay, now we're recording, I think. Yay!
Awesome.
Welcome to Skin in the City. I'm so excited to have you guys here.
Thank you so much. We are so excited to be here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to jump right in and I wanted you both to share like what you do in the industry and how long you've been doing it.
Okay. Perfect.
Just like a brief, just like nothing crazy, just so people can get to know you.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I'll go. So I got my esthetician license in 2017, right after I graduated high school. And I've bounced around. I first worked at a day spa, got some experience doing waxing, pedicures, bunch of different types of things, and then I started my own business. Decided I did not love doing that, and now I work at Revive Skin Bar, which was actually always my goal to end up at Revive. That was always my dream, and
Okay.
so Revive, very happy there. And
Amazing.
yeah, I feel so lucky to be at a place where I love so much because I know that's not how it is for everybody.
Yeah.
So I do feel really lucky to have that environment and be around people that I love so much. So yeah, I'm at Revive. I love it so much. We focus on skin revision results. We have a laser, we have peels, microneedling. We really try to focus on different concerns, and it is the most rewarding career. I'm sure you guys can agree, like being able to change lives because it really is changing lives. And so I do feel very blessed to be doing what I'm doing. But then also really quick, I also do makeup as well, and I have my
Right.
own business that I've been doing since forever. I actually started doing makeup before I even became an esthetician. And
Okay.
so I also do that on the side, and I love it so much. So that's me.
I love that. And you're located in Arizona, right?
Yep.
Which means you can actually use lasers.
I
Yeah.
can. Yep, we can here in
Because I'm
Arizona.
like so many places we can't, like including California. Like I can't use a laser. I would love to learn, but I love that you are like it's so diverse where you're doing makeup on the side and then you're treating clients with like lasers like in the clinic. So that's super cool.
Yeah, best of both worlds. I love it.
Love that.
My turn?
You go.
Okay.
Your turn.
Okay, I'm Lily Brock. I'm 27. I've been an esthetician now for six or how many years have you been? 6 or 7.
Let's see. I got my license the end of 2017. So is that 18, 19, 20, 21, 7?
Seven years.
Pretty much
Somewhere
6
around there.
years. Yeah.
So, I have absolutely loved doing aesthetics. I started off as a waxer, and then I worked at Revive, and that's how we met. So I was a
Okay.
waxer for about a year and a half, and then I worked at Revive for I think it was like just over 2 years. And then I started my own business, and it's called Flourish Wellness. So I have a med spa and wellness center here in Gilbert, Arizona. So we have everything from like cold plunges, saunas, red lights, grounding mats, all of the biohacking things, as well as we do some DNA testing and some epigenetic tests and other labs as well. We do medical aesthetic type things like Revive does as well with microneedling, lasers, peels, all of those types of services. And
Okay.
we have lots of fun here. We also run underneath the medical director. So she's here and
Okay.
she does Juvo, she does IVs, medical weight loss. We do everything here. And before ever doing aesthetics, I was actually in school to become a nurse.
Okay.
Then I dropped out because I got pregnant during COVID, and there was no way in heck that I was doing or nursing school online because that felt very terrifying. So I didn't end up doing that, but I became a health coach back in 2022.
Okay.
And I've just been able to implement that into my business, and it has been awesome because it's always been in my mind of just healing the skin from the inside out. Ever since I started aesthetics, that's just kind of from the health background coming into the beauty industry. It was always just in my head, like how important your inner health was for the skin. And so it was really cool. Like from the very beginning. This is what I wanted to do.
I
Was
love
put
that.
the two together. So that's
Yeah,
what
it
we do.
makes so much sense. I
Gosh.
feel like people want, either they just want like instant results like with their skin, but they don't realize that like, the health and wellness is what,
Majority of it.
80%? Yeah, a
Yeah.
majority.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been really fun. So we've been open here in this location. We bought it last year. And so, but we officially opened, we did the full build out on our location and we officially opened back in March. But I
Okay.
went from a team of two estheticians in person and one online to now having 10 total. So
Ugh,
it was a very big jump
it's
overnight, but it's
huge.
been so fun. And it's okay. Side note, this is kind of crazy, but I have
Yeah.
listened to your podcast since like the very beginning, I feel like, of my aesthetics career. And so it's just like so full circle to finally like be
Aw,
here with you and like meet you kind of in person this way.
yeah,
It's just so cool. So thank you so
I
much for
love
having
it.
us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for being on here. Well, I was excited to talk with you guys because I do kind of want to dive into like like the podcasting. Like I haven't I've talked to other podcasters, but I think it would be really just like interesting, maybe helpful for someone out there who's like an esthetician, but they're like, what else can I do with like my career, right? There's so many options. We don't just have to be in the treatment room. So I thought it'd be fun for us to kind of just have a conversation about podcasting as beauty professionals.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
so you guys already answered my question of how you guys met. So you met working together.
Yes.
Okay. And then how did you come to the point where like now you have a podcast? Like how, how did it start?
We both had a break during our
Okay.
schedule, and we both knew we wanted to have more than Instagram because
Mhm.
like what if Instagram just died? How would we
It just
reach
glitches out one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
who knows? It could glitch out tomorrow. We have no idea. So we both kind of talked about, Alita talked about wanting to start a YouTube, right? It was
Yeah.
a YouTube.
But I had a baby at the time and I'm like, but I feel like on YouTube people keep expecting to see more and more and more of your life and I like didn't want to put my kids online, so I was like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then I always thought it would be fun to start a podcast, but I was like scared to do one
Yeah.
alone.
Fair enough. Makes
And
sense.
so we just kind of went back and forth and we're like, it just came so naturally. I think it was you. You're like, we should start one.
Yeah, I was like, well, why not? Because we both wanted to expand our platforms, especially like after COVID. We're like, how are we going to keep in touch with our clients if COVID happens again and like
Right.
Instagram dies? Like thinking worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And within like 30 minutes, we had come up with the name of our podcast. We had probably 30 episode ideas and we were just like, let's do this. And we started like a month later and we had just talked to each other pretty briefly, just in general. We weren't
We didn't
like,
know each other that well.
yeah, we
Okay.
barely
You
knew
didn't know each
at
other.
all.
But did you feel like you were already having like good conversations where you're like, wait, this could be a podcast because it's like an interesting topic that maybe other people want to hear about? Or you were just like, we want to put ourselves out there more?
Yeah, I think also like we both wanted to be able to share what we know
Yeah.
Hmm.
because we felt like when we graduated, we're like, oh, we wish there were more resources where we could learn and have like a
course.
safe environment where like no questions are dumb. Like
Yeah.
ask any question you want.
Safe
and we really
space.
yeah, and we really wanted to have that with our listeners where it's like, no, ask us all the questions. If we know it, we'll answer. If we don't know, we'll figure it out.
Right.
So that was a big push for sure.
And we wanted to like marry kind of we both listen to podcasts. We love podcasts. And
Right.
so we wanted to marry like both education but girl chat. Like
Yeah.
let's just yap and chat and
Yeah.
just kind of talk about both together. And I think that so far I feel like we've done a pretty good job with executing just both casual conversation but also keeping it very informative at the same time.
Right.
And having really like top-notch guests on as well, just professionals in our industry. Like we've had CEOs of some of the brands that we carry in our treatment room on our podcast, and that's been so surreal, just even as a provider, just like, oh my gosh, like meeting your idols in a way. And so
Yeah.
it's just been really cool and like really
Yeah.
great opportunity to just put yourself out there and meet people.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like that's a perfect example of like, you wanted to do something, you were coming from a place where like, what if Instagram goes away? And sometimes that's how it happens. It's like something, it's kind of like not something completely bad, but it's like those what ifs can
Yeah.
completely, transform your life and your perspective. So how long have you guys been podcasting now? A year? A little over a year? More than that?
It's been 2.5 years. We're
2
gonna come
years?
up on
Okay.
yeah,
Sorry.
2 years in
January.
January.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
Well,
crazy.
congratulations.
Thank
you.
you.
And you
Yeah, it's been
still
so
like obviously like you still love doing it. Like you're
Yes.
happy. Yeah. And then can you share how are you recording? Are you recording weekly? Are you like batching it out? What does it look like? Or like take me through like one of your weeks or one of your days, because I think that there's so many estheticians or just beauty professionals out there that like they want to do this, but they're like, how do I have time? Like, how do I fit this in? And is it going to be beneficial for me?
Yeah. Here, I'll start.
Go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
So, I think that with podcasting, like we've done it every single week since we've started. We just we sit down, record. If it's last minute, we're like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna get an episode out tomorrow? We do it through Zoom. We call each other, and we have a huge list. It's like an ongoing, forever long list of episode ideas that we just think of, or that listeners will submit to us like, hey, can you talk about X, Y, and Z? So we have this list that we'll just pick a topic from, and some of them require quite a bit of research and preparation for, and other ones are more just like on the fly. They just want some help and questions and things. So we've been able to do both like in person and virtual, which has been really nice. We're still trying to figure out the YouTube situation. It's really challenging.
It's just like it's just one more thing, right? It's like
It is.
Yeah.
just do Instagram and then TikTok and Pinterest and have a podcast and do a YouTube.
Yes.
That's it.
Well,
And then
I
have a
live very
life.
far.
Yeah.
I live so far, and so it's like, at least for myself, it's a whole production, like figuring out who's watching the kids, getting the whole setup here, and then the whole editing process. But I mean, as non-techie girls, I think that you don't have to be the smartest person in order to figure out how to podcast, you know?
Well, you guys are smart. Maybe you're just not like the most tech savvy, but you're tech savvy enough, or it sounds like you were willing enough to learn.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
And we definitely did have help too.
Yes.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband, he's a nerd, so it helped.
We love a nerd. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was gonna be my next question is like, how did you learn, or do you have tips for anyone who like wants to try and they're like, I don't know where to start?
Yeah. I would say get a Rodecaster, like the mic box thing. And that just sound quality improves
Yeah.
100,000,000%. Like it makes everything so much better. And then we use an app called Audacity, and that's where we edit everything on. And so I think that with a combination of those two things, that's like all you really need in order to get started.
Yeah. And then Mike's headset. And
Yeah, mics, headphones.
Yeah.
Are you doing your own editing?
Yeah.
Did you just self-taught?
Husband taught.
Husband taught.
Yes. No, her husband really like helped get us started. And then also it's like if we run into an issue, go to YouTube. And I think that can be helpful too, because there are people who do make videos sharing how to get started. So like if there is a listener out there wanting to start something and you don't have anyone around that is tech savvy, go to YouTube. There's people that will help teach you on there.
Of
And
course.
TikTok.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so with having the podcast, and you said now almost 3 years, like what do you feel like you've learned from it? Like what is both of your favorite parts about podcasting, or like the opportunities that the podcasting has brought you?
That's such a good question. I really like that. I think for me personally, so about me really quick. I tend to be a little more introverted. It takes a lot for me to get comfortable, warm up. And so it was really scary to me at first, but also something Aaliyah and I talk about all the time is like there's no growth in the comfort zone, as cheesy as it is, but there
Yeah, it's
isn't.
true.
And so I think it really has helped me push what I'm comfortable with, leading
Mm,
with guests, talking to people I've looked up to for so long. And so I really think that has helped just like my personal confidence. And I feel like it's also translated into the treatment room as well, feeling like
I
I can
love
have
that.
better conversations. And so I think like there's been a lot of personal growth for me, honestly, that I have seen, but also, of course, having the guests come on has been so surreal, meeting people and being able to ask questions that I've had. So, yeah, I would say that's probably for me. What about you?
Um, oh, I love that because so during the time that we've been podcasting, like I went from being a new mom to a mom of two, and
Okay.
from being employed to being an employer. And I think that just being able to see the growth that we've gone through together, like she's gone through some really high highs, really low lows, and same, I feel like same during
Yeah.
those years. And so just to be able to kind of watch that growth and the confidence, like please don't listen to our first episode, but if you must, listen to only the first 10 seconds to see how much we've grown. But
Yeah.
I think that one of my favorite parts of podcasting has been to see how big but how close our community is. Like
Mm.
we have met so many estheticians, like in Vegas at IECSC, we've been able to go since since we started the podcast. We were just like, hey yo, like let's go do a live show. That was one of our goals that we had. And so we're like, let's go do one in Vegas and pay all this money to go have a booth and barely anyone know who we are. And it was just like I love how much we're just willing to go on a whim and do things. And we've been able to travel so much together because of this. And it has just been so cool to like
Yeah.
form one, like she's become one of my best friends over the
Love
last few
that.
years, which has been just amazing because especially going through those high highs, low lows, it's like I have a
Yeah.
weekly catch up with my best friend. And then also on top of that, it's very hard to showcase who you are and your personality online sometimes, I think,
It
especially
is.
Instagram, trying to show a highlight reel to your clients, but also connect with people in your industry. And if you want to be an educator in your industry, but also keep it real with your clients, it's very hard to do all of it on one platform.
Yeah.
So I think having a space where we can just be ourselves and connect with people and try our best to educate as much as we can is just it's so fun, and it's just so rewarding to finally meet all those people in person, because until we went to IECSC, we were like just two girls yapping in the mic. We did not think many people listen,
Yeah.
regardless of the numbers, because
Right.
numbers can continue to grow, but
Of
until you
course.
see those people in person, it doesn't mean
It's just a
much.
number.
It's just a number.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that has been one of the most rewarding things, and just to see people who actually value what you do is really, really, really cool.
Well, I think as estheticians, we're so desperate like for like community and like community outside of Instagram, which can feel toxic. Like it just
Yeah.
can, you know? So it's like if we can find like real community and like see and meet each other in person or hear people talking about their experiences, that in itself, I feel like is education without having to like, you know, go super in depth about like some type of service, which of course is beneficial as well. But like most of us work in like a small dark room all day, you know, with our
Yeah.
clients. We desperately need community. So it's amazing that you guys have grown your own community and that it's like it's helped you grow as people. And I love that like now you've become like such close friends. Like how do you feel like how did you know when you guys met? Like I know you said you were both like you were just like a little slow at work and like things were like how did you know, or was it just kind of like one of those things like let's just try and see what happens and now you're best friends?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I love that.
It's just like we had an idea, and I mean the conversation to get there was easy enough. We're like, oh yeah, let's go,
Why
let's go
not?
take this to a mic. And so it just developed from there. But the first few episodes, it wasn't like hard to talk to each other. I'm
Mhm.
like at all, but it was just being new, not having any inside jokes with someone. It's like not as funny, I think, to other people, or
Yeah.
it's not as entertaining when it's very business,
Yeah.
And so I think as we've grown together, conversations have flown more freely.
Of course. I mean, that's
Sure.
just like natural in any
The liquid
relationship.
confidence has presented itself.
I love it. But I also think, and people might not realize it if they haven't done a podcast themselves, is there is something slightly intimidating, like putting on the headphones, like putting a microphone. All of a sudden, even if like you're in a room by yourself or just the two of you, you're like, wait, like there's a
Yeah.
microphone. Like there's just like this added pressure, and people don't realize that, you know?
Yeah, the amount of takes that we had for our intro and outro was ungodly. Like
So many.
really.
Yeah.
But the beautiful part is that you were willing to do it, and it doesn't sound like you let those become roadblocks. You're like, we're just gonna do this, we're gonna figure it out. And I think your openness obviously is like, you know, you're reaping the benefits of it now.
Yeah, and I think too, just listening to podcasts, like we had ideas of what we wanted ours to become. And
Okay.
so I think that that kind of gives you a good basis of like how to try to get your conversation to flow, what kind of things you want to add in. Like we just started doing, well, from the very beginning, we started doing Dear Esty, which is our advice segment that we do once a month. We've done it every month since we've started. And so I think having some bases that you do, and then like the way that we start our podcast has been the exact same every single time. We start with our
Right.
weekly favorites, weekly updates, because we also just like the girl talk
Of
aspect
course.
of it, and we wanted to be more relatable and be able to share some of our personal life in a way
Of
with
course.
our listeners. So
I think we're all you know, we're all seeking that. Like, of course I want to listen to podcasts about my industry and like learn and grow, but like at some point it can get a little dull if it's just like someone overly educating and there's not anything like light and fun and like fluffy. I
totally.
think that's like necessary, and sometimes you can learn the best way with like the light and fluffy in between.
I agree.
Yeah, totally. And we really are like yin and yang. Like oh, my mic just fell. 1 second. I'm trying to keep this in my ear. We really are like yin and yang. Like we are so different, but also like so similar too, like with core values. And so I think like having discussions, like we learn from each other too. Like every time we talk, I'm like, oh, didn't know that. Like it's really cool that we can learn from each other because we do have such like different interests. We like different
Mhm.
things. And so I feel like that has been really helpful too. Um, and then also like with the podcast having like different segments, like she said, like Dear Esty, we have that. We also have our book reviews. We'll review different skin books that we'll read and different things like that, and be able to get different takes, because when you read something, everyone is gonna grasp onto something different.
Right.
And so it really is like I learned so much just from podcasting, from just like repeating the information, because that is how I
Yeah.
learn repetition. So being able
Mm-hmm.
to read something and then say it out loud, I think that has also been so huge for growing as an esthetician, is just becoming more confident in my knowledge.
Love that. Is there anything that you don't like about podcasting?
Hmm.
I think it's like definitely like more time consuming
Mm-hmm.
than we initially thought, just
Mm-hmm.
between editing and then also trying to have a presence on Instagram for our podcast as well.
Right.
Um, it's not bad, but I think it definitely was just more time consuming than we initially thought.
That makes sense.
Yes. And because we're not marketing experts, I feel
Yeah.
like trying to monetize a podcast is much harder and a lot more commitment than it may seem if you don't
Yeah.
have like an agent getting you deals and helping
Yeah.
you plan when they're going out and how
Right.
much you're negotiating, because it's like how
You
much
don't know.
can you put a price tag on or yapping, you know? It's like how does one gauge
Depends
that?
on how many people are listening, honestly.
Right. So
That was going
that's
to be
just
my
kind
next
of
question. It was the monetization, because I feel like, again, people have a perception like, if I have a podcast or like if I have a large following on social media, then it automatically equals like dollar signs. And
Yeah.
as you guys know, as I know, that it is not like that. And especially in podcasting. Plus, podcasting, I feel like because it is so new, it's the Wild West. So
Hmm.
I don't know from like your guys' experience, I've been podcasting, I don't know, for like 6 years now. But even just like learning like the terms and like the range, it's like some people want to pay you $5 and then some people are willing to pay you $400. Like it depends,
Yeah.
and you have to like learn how to navigate that and figure out like, okay, well, if I record an ad, that's going to take more time. Do I have more time? Is
Right.
it worth the $5?
Right, totally. So like with monetizing, it was something that in the beginning we were like, let's monetize. But obviously in
Right.
the beginning it's like, how are you? Show the proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, in the beginning, like we did a few ads and then we took a break from it just because it was a lot to try to navigate, negotiate. And at the time, like I had just started my business and became a mom of two. And I was like, I don't think I have enough time to email people.
Yeah.
And then it's like also not knowing technically like what your worth is in the podcast space is hard. But the best kind, I mean, we've made a substantial amount from podcasting, but it's been more so through affiliations with other beauty professionals and marketing them and being willing to connect with them and talk with them and do things like that. So that's been really fun. And we also do merch.
Yeah.
So merch
Love
doesn't
that.
make you millions, but merch makes you
Yeah.
something. So that's been nice too. Merch makes enough to make more merch. So
Yeah.
Merch, exactly. I was going to say, is it worth it to you guys? But obviously, it sounds like you like doing it and your
yeah,
community wants it.
right.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. For the
For,
community.
totally. Would you say that, but because of the podcast, even though it's not like dollar for dollar, like you're not like, okay, I worked an hour on the podcast, I'm making $200. Like when we're doing like a facial service, right? It's like an even
Mhm.
exchange. Like I give an hour of my time, I make $200 or X amount of dollars, right? But with podcasting, I feel like it's a more like a long term, and it has like all these like hands and arms like in different places, right? You have the merch, and then maybe like you start networking and you build a community here and someone wants you to advertise, and like there's just like other opportunities, but it's not as straightforward as like working in the treatment room.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not as consistent in that way.
Right, right. Like some months you're not making anything or you're making very little, right? Maybe you're making enough to like just keep the podcast going, right? Because that costs like a little bit of money too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. And like I remember even when we first like were trying to monetize more so and when we had our first brand ask us for our media kit,
Uh-huh.
we had no idea what a media kit was. We had to go to Google and say, what is a media kit? What do you have to put in this? So it definitely was like a lot of Googling too, trying to learn. And so you're so right. Like you definitely understand, like it definitely is like your hands are in multiple places and it's a slow build.
Yeah, but I think passively it can be so beneficial not only for the podcast and the community, but have you noticed the benefits of your own like business and like your own careers as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that credibility amongst the industry has been a huge one. I mean, since starting the podcast, at least myself, I've done continuing education courses and being able to even give snippets and like show a little bit of what I know on the podcast so that people translate into becoming a student of mine has been really
Right.
awesome. And then I do lots of mentorships now with labs of just how to run labs. And so I think that the podcast has really helped myself in that way to grow some parts of my business when it comes to reaching estheticians. That's not like necessarily like my top goal with my business is to just teach estheticians, but
Right.
because I have a whole team, but it is a fun side thing that I really do enjoy doing is educating, especially when it comes to health and especially to estheticians. So that's been really helpful, at least for my end. But something that we talk about often is I think that if we put more time, like treated the podcast more like a job,
Mm.
maybe we could see more fruits of the labor. But it's just been so fun to do it. That
Right.
It doesn't even feel like a job for us. Like we're just two friends.
That's the best part then.
Yeah.
That's the best part. And that means
Yeah.
you're doing the right thing. And like, yes, of course you could put more time and more energy, but I think as you're, talking about how health and wellness is so important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and your kids and your business and your career, it's a balancing act. And I think it's you guys are, a good example of how you can do a little bit of everything.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing all this information, because I'm just like, I don't know if I've ever really had a conversation like this. And I just know that there's people out there that are curious, or they've always wanted to, but they're like afraid. And, it does, of course, take time and energy, but it can like bring so much value to your career and to your life.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like you mentioned earlier, it definitely can be intimidating having your mic, having your headphones. Like it can definitely be intimidating. And like even in Vegas, we always have our listeners when they come visit us at our booth, we have them say hi on our microphone, and then we include that in the following episode. And
I love that.
about every single person that comes says like, wow, this is intimidating.
They're like, this is so much scarier than I ever thought it would be. And
Yeah.
like, I'm just saying my name.
Yeah. And so like I do think like, yes, it is scary at first, but also like you do get more comfortable the more you
Yeah.
do it, and it is
Yeah.
really rewarding, and you learn a lot yourself. So like I really, if anyone out there is interested, like I would encourage you to look more into it, because we have seen a lot of growth, not just with community, but just with ourselves as well, and continue our education.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of keeps you in the game a little bit more, right? It keeps you
Yeah.
on your toes, keeps you motivated. You keep pushing yourself to talk to new people and put yourself in like new experiences. Speaking of, I know you guys have done, how many live podcasts have you actually done?
I think just two.
Two?
Yeah.
Both in Vegas, like the
Uh-huh.
past 2 years in Vegas?
Yeah.
And how did that feel compared to like, recording on the couch?
I
Terrifying.
loved it. Which is so weird coming
That's-
from me.
I was going to say, that sounds like opposite reactions. That's not what I was expecting
Right?
it to be the other way around.
Yeah,
You
no.
kind of want to like cry and like throw up, but then after you're like, oh my God, that was so amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know why I love it so much, because like I do.
The adrenaline rush.
Yes, I think it's the adrenaline. It like makes me not scared, because I'm like, oh, there's all these people. I think I just feel more excitement than anything,
Yeah.
because it's like, wow, there's this many people here that care to hear what we have to say, that support us. Like it really makes us, we talk about it and we get emotional. Like
Yeah.
it's just crazy to us that like we just have that many people that are willing to listen to us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the reason I think why I get so nervous is because there's so many people that I look up to in our industry. And so it's like when they are right in front of me, I'm like, please go away. Please leave me alone. Like, you don't have to listen. Just go.
Yeah.
But I also think in this industry there's like an unspoken hierarchy, but I want to break that. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
this person's at this level because they have this many followers, or they've done X, Y, and Z, and like I just want to start breaking that mold, because
Yeah.
like I can learn just as much from you guys as you can learn from me. Do you know what I mean? Like that's why I podcast and I put myself out in the community, because like I learn so much from my community. I'm like, wait, I think I'm benefiting more than like you guys are. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, it's such like a beautiful exchange. And I think, I think it's important and needs to be talked about. That's why you guys are here.
I agree.
I think you were like the first esthetician that I ever followed. Genuinely. I think
Really?
you may be the first one, because there weren't very many estheticians
There
online.
wasn't.
And I think that like now being an esthetician is so competitive online, even more
Yeah.
so than it is even in the treatment room, because
Yeah.
I think people see credibility in following,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
doesn't mean that people with higher followers aren't credible, but it's
Totally.
just that people with less are also just as credible sometimes. And so
That's why I'm saying there's this like unspoken hierarchy, and it's bullshit. It just is.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
true. Do you know
and
what I mean?
something something that we say all the time on our podcast, because I feel like we talk about this topic quite a bit, but even though someone may have 500, 600, 7,000, whatever followers, does not mean that they have that many clients.
Yeah.
Not all of those followers
No,
are clients. And
no.
frankly, there's not enough hours in the day, nor does that person even want to work that much. Like, frankly. And so I know online, and even like when we were posting our stories, we talk about this a lot too. We post our daily lineups, which is great. I think it's awesome because your clients are like, oh my gosh, she's hard at work. She's getting that money, like excited for her. I think clients love that because they see, oh, she's booked and busy. But to other estheticians, they look at that and they compare.
It's
And
competition.
and it's not meant to be that, but on my books, if I have 15 clients in a day, I should because I work one freaking day a week. Okay? Like
Right.
that's you should be like, yes, Alita, please
Yeah.
do that because you also employed 10 people. And if you don't have clients, like crying for you? So
Yeah.
I think that we need to like zoom out and say, like, oh, even if I only have 4 or 5 clients today, or even 2 or 3, great. If you're working freaking 4 or 5 days a week, you've got enough clients. Like, I don't think that there's necessarily an amount of clients that makes you a successful esthetician. And
Yeah.
so what we were talking about last week in our last episode was if social media wasn't a thing and if you
Hmm.
had 3 clients that day, would you be content with yourself? Would you be grateful for those 3 clients,
Totally.
or would you think it was enough?
I
And if
mean,
not, if you want more, then go get them.
exactly. But right, if you remove all of the noise of social media, and I feel so grateful that when I started, there was no social media. And I remember like when I first went solo, like writing out like, okay, literally if I see one client a day for 5 days a week, like I'll still be making more money than I was making working at the med spa or that I was making like waitressing. But
Yes.
now we have like all this like outside noise. But what we forget is it's just like the smallest snapshot of someone's day, of someone's week, of someone's career. Like we don't know the behind the scenes. We don't know. We can guess and we can maybe believe what they're telling us. But even that, it's like take it with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, like you need to be happy with like what you're doing and how much money you're making. And like you said, like if 3 clients is enough, great. If you want to make more money, like go out there, but it shouldn't be because X, Y, and Z saw 10 people today.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we were also saying, like, consider the services that are being done. If they have 30 people on their books, they're probably a waxer, right? Like,
Right.
and that's normal for the industry, though.
Yes.
So I think it's also like take into consideration that person's goals, the season of life that they're in. Like, I look at my friends who
Yes.
are like maybe they don't have kids, or they are just they're doing this more as like a side job or like a leisurely thing that they just enjoy doing.
Yeah. Part
Like
time.
consider their goals, their own life, like, and they don't have to be the same as yours. And I think
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't
it shouldn't
be.
be. It shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't. Yeah. I mean, I'm not working the same amount of time or how I was when I was, 25 and now I'm 36.
Absolutely.
It's like life changes and you're supposed to like change and evolve and ebb and flow.
Yeah, totally. I think I definitely, and I've talked about this on our podcast too, I think I've definitely felt that pressure too of social media because I think
Mm,
back before social media blew up, and I'm like, I was so content, and now I do like see myself like stressing, like, oh, I need to
I
post more,
know.
I need to do more online. And so I really do appreciate you talking about this because I think it is something that definitely affects a lot of estheticians. And I've
It
said it
affects
before,
all of us. It
yeah,
affects it affects me too. It's like sometimes I go on there and I'm like, shit, I haven't like posted in days and everyone's doing all these things. But I'm like, post when you want to post, you know?
right,
It
right.
can't be the end all be all. And like you guys said from the very beginning to like make this full circle, the reason that you started podcasting was because what if one day Instagram goes away or what if one day TikTok goes away? Like you need to have other options and other avenues. And look how many like amazing things it's brought you.
Yeah, it's been so cool. And even just for like continuing education for clients, like that's been really cool too. Like when we have clients that listen to our podcast,
Yes.
it's
Love
like
that.
we're getting to a point where it's expanding just outside of the industry as well. And so, yes, we can make connections with this, but I've also gotten a few clients just from our podcast. And so
That's
I think
amazing.
like
Yeah.
don't underestimate the value of other platforms. Like
Yep.
there's Pinterest and TikTok and Facebook even. Like people still are grinding on Facebook doing all the freaking things. And so
Yeah.
like get your bag, like do your marketing and just put yourself out there because the worst thing that can happen is, oh my gosh, oops, your personality shows great. Like awesome.
Right.
Get more people to see who you are. And if you feel more comfortable on other platforms that aren't as intimidating for you, that you feel like you could shine more on, go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, try it out, experiment, have fun, see what happens.
Like I'm
Like,
a millennial. Curated stuff is in my bones. And so catch me on freaking Instagram. But some of my younger employees, they're freaking TikTokers and that's where they shine. And so I'm like, go there. You don't have to have a huge following on Instagram. It's
no,
fine.
you don't have to have a huge following, period. Like
Period.
at
Yeah.
all. Like honestly, it's so funny. A few years ago I like started posting like more consistently on Pinterest just for like fun. I'm like, oh, I have all these beautiful pictures. I might as well post on there. And now people come up to me like when I'm at some of the trade shows and they're like, I found you on Pinterest. And I'm like, no freaking way. Like, really?
Wow.
So it's
So
just like you
random.
it's so random, but I will take it. You know what I mean? It's like, so that's what I'm saying. Like when you have like all the legs and the arms and all these places, you never know what can come of it. Like what new opportunities, new clients, new connections, and most importantly, like learning more about yourself and building your confidence.
Totally.
100%. And yeah, I'm just gonna say Pinterest is a hidden gem. Like
Hidden gem.
such a hidden gem. More people need to be on Pinterest because
Yep.
it takes minimal effort.
Totally. My pro tip, which I've talked about here on the podcast a lot, is like if you're gonna make like a TikTok or an Instagram reel, save it and repost it on Pinterest. You've already made it. Just do a repost. That's how I started doing it. I'm like, I'm already making the content. And then I would just either link it back to my Instagram or link it to my website. And there you go. Now I've got like 1 million views a month, which is like wild. Like just because I, took extra 3 seconds. So anyhow, thank you guys so much for, again, like being so open and vulnerable. I hope that this brings, everyone or somebody value who's like, thinking about podcasting, or maybe they're just nervous to put themselves out there. Any last words about podcasting or anything else that you want to share with the audience? I can't wait either. This conversation has been great. Thank you guys again so much. Can you tell everyone where to find you both individually and then the podcast as well? Amazing. All right. Thank you guys so much.